This is really interesting. Now, another thing that is equally interesting is the fact that although Nkrumah and the rest group, of course, needed independence of Africa, they all didn't really have the same idea of the independence, no, of the kind of independence that they really wanted for their states, because we need to understand that this it becomes a little bit more complex, no, when we're talking of the states. I understand that when we talk of Africa, we are all tempted to easily generalize, no? Of course, most of us, we are guilty of this in most of the cases, no? Because we tend to look at Africa now like a small village, the way everybody know everybody, no? Like, but it's not always the case, because we all do not agree on the same thing. We all do know Africa is the most diverse part of any part of the human race, in terms of culture, in terms of belief, in terms of way of life, in terms of even the type of human being that exists in the space of time, is the most diverse and complex. So to sometimes generalize, I don't know if it really is always the case. So what I'm trying to say here is that even though most of them have gone to the same university, though really all of them didn't go to the same university in US, so went to university in France and all that. And so when it came to really independent, being free from the European domination, they all do not agree on the same idea of the state or the kind of state that they want. A good example could be, for example, when Kwame Nkrumah, becoming the president, went to the president of Ivory Coast, the adjacent state, no, Humphrey Boffanin. So let's start to unite, no, because we are just two brothers. But Humphrey Boffanin did not agree. Humphrey want to remain with France so that Ghana can remain with the UK, no? Which is to say that they didn't really agree on how to forge ahead as a united African state.
Yes, Obehi, you are very right. I mean, even with the independence of America, the founding fathers, when you read about them, you get to know that the Jeffersons, the Washingtons, they had their own disagreements, and there had to be some compromise at a point for Americans' independence to be possible. So yes, in a human institution, there's a saying that if we all agree, then somebody is not thinking. So yes, there were disagreements. People felt that things could be approached in a different way. For example, as far back as 1938, thereabout, when these young students, especially the young Nigerian students and then young Goku students, were forming their groups and having deliberation, they had disagreements. And Nkrumah made mention of that in his autobiography, where he says that um, it was not easy going by any means, for we were continually coming up against internal conflict between the Nigerian and Gold Coast elements. The Nigerians claimed that there was no question of considering African or West African unity at the existing stage of colonial independency, and he insisted that we should leave these colonial territories to struggle for themselves. So even amongst themselves as students, they had their own disagreement. Now, the second example, when you make reference to the United Gold Coast Convention, which was a movement for independence for Ghana, amongst the members themselves, they had their own disagreement, to the point that there's a slogan in Ghana where we say that Nkrumah's movement or party was saying independence now. The other group was saying that independence within the shortest time possible. The issue is with approach, but the price, the aim, the focus was still one. The focus was still independence, but it was about difference in approach, right? So that when you talk about the formation of the African Union, there were the Casablanca group, there was the Moroccan group, there were different blocks of the African Union. All right. And you make mention of Hofebuan. Yes, because you are talking about those who were colonized by France and then colonies who were colonized by Britain, right? So definitely there will be issue of language barrier. Definitely there will be a misunderstanding of how things can be achieved. However, they were all looking for one thing, which was independence. Africa should be independent. Africa should unite. But then it was a problem of approach as to how to go about it. All right. And Nkrumah had his own approach. Nkrumah felt that, look, yes, that is why even at a point people say that Nkrumah decided to marry from Egypt, because Nkrumah needed that North African connection to connect with the sub-Saharan Africa, to still forge ahead this issue of Africa can unite. Now, other people thought otherwise. The Hufebuanis, the Nyereres of Tanzania, the Jomo Kenyatta of the Kenyans, they also had their own approach, right? Yes, but the point is that they all knew that the answer was Africa uniting. And perhaps that is why now we have the establishment of the AFTA in Ghana, which is to spearhead African trade now. That is why still Organization of Africa Unity has metamorphosized into African Union. They are having their own challenges, but they all know that it is true that the answer to Africa's problem is Africa unity. But we are still hitherto struggling to give it a particular approach to achieve that unity. And many still feel now in contemporary Africa, a lot of people think that Nkrumah's approach would have worked if it had not been abandoned, if he had not been overthrown.
Yeah. I like the analogy you gave before, that if everybody agree, it means that someone is not thinking. That is very important. Because it is not possible even for a family that we do not disagree. We always we can not all have the same mindset. Like I was saying before, Africa is a complex animal. So it is not possible that all of us must agree on the same thing. But at least we must agree on where we want to go. That you are correctly right. Exactly. We all know that we want to be free. It's just the approach that is different. But that is why we need leaders. That is why we need people who are able to see far ahead, who are able to negotiate, who are able to understand that sometimes we need to give and we need to take. It doesn't always have to go my own way. But if I can manage to also understand the way of the other people, then we can manage to go on at this or the same. Because the politics too, the people, all the politicians do not agree. But we all agree that this state, this country must survive. Our people must be served. So whether it is you, the president, or me, the president, the people must reign supreme. It doesn't mean that we agree, but we are still going to function anyway. So I really take that to heart. That is a very good analogy. I really like that part very well.